The year is approximately 3000 BC. The settlement on this hill was called Salem or Jebus, long before Jerusalem. It was an insignificant place controlled by the Canaanite tribes. It was just a small, fortified town on a rocky ridge between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea. It was supplied by a spring called Gihon. Around 1000 BC, King David and his army captured the town from the Jebusites, renamed it Jerusalem, and made it their capital. Why this location? Because it was a neutral territory. It didn't belong to any of the 12 tribes of Israel. The Ark of the Covenant was brought here, and Jerusalem became not only a capital, but also a religious center. In 957 BC, Solomon, son of David, began the construction of the first temple on Mount Moriah. The construction lasted 7 years. Cedar wood from Lebanon, gold from Ophir, and skilled craftsmen from Phoenicia were used. The temple became the center of Jewish worship. Jerusalem transformed from a hilltop town into the beating heart of the Kingdom of Israel. 950 BC, the temple was completed. The Ark of the Covenant was placed in the Holy Sepulchre. At its peak, Jerusalem had perhaps 25,000 inhabitants, a very large population for those years. Merchants from Sheba, diplomats from Egypt, Jerusalem had transformed from a mere hilltop town into a capital worthy of its reputation. When Solomon died in 930 BC, his son Rehoboam became king, but he was arrogant. He refused to lower taxes and governed poorly. The northern tribes revolted, and the kingdom was divided into two: Israel in the north, with its capital in Samaria, and Judah in the south, with its capital in Jerusalem. Jerusalem was now the capital of a smaller and weaker kingdom. The Golden Age had ended. 722 BC, the Assyrian Empire destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel. The 10 tribes dispersed and vanished. Refugees flocked south to Jerusalem. Jerusalem, with its rapidly increasing population, barely survived. King Hezekiah, who strengthened the walls, also dug a tunnel to secure the water supply. Jerusalem is preparing for a siege. In 701 BC, the Assyrians arrived in Jerusalem, and King Sennacherib's army of 185,000 soldiers besieged the city. Although the siege seemed hopeless for Jerusalem, something happened. A plague swept through the Assyrian camp, killing thousands by morning. Sennacherib was forced to retreat, and Jerusalem survived. The city, destined to be destroyed, stood defiantly. They call it a miracle. The miracle bought Jerusalem time. A century later, King Josiah tried to reorganize the kingdom. He repaired the temple, destroyed pagan altars, and restored Jerusalem to its former faith. But the world was changing. Babylon was rising in the east, and Egypt was stirring in the south. When Josiah died in battle in 609 BC, the end of Jerusalem began to approach. The days of the first temple were numbered. In 588 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon marched on the gates of Jerusalem. His army consisted of 30,000 soldiers, siege towers, and battering rams. The city was under siege. No food could enter, and no one could leave. The siege would last 2.5 years. After an 18-month siege, Jerusalem is starving. People are eating whatever they can find to survive. Although the prophet Jeremiah warned them to surrender or die, King Zedekiah refused. The city is barely holding out. People are dying in the streets from hunger and disease. Although the walls are still standing, the situation inside is very, very bad. July 586 BC. After a long struggle, the walls were breached. Babylonian soldiers stormed in through the breach. King Zedekiah tried to escape through a secret tunnel, but was captured. The Babylonians tortured the king severely, then dragged him in chains to Babylon. Jerusalem fell. In August 586 BC, after the walls were destroyed, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the city to be demolished by his guard commander, Nebuzaradan. The first temple, which had stood for 370 years, was set on fire. The Ark of the Covenant disappeared and was never seen again. Jerusalem burned for days. The survivors, priests, nobles, skilled workers, are chained and set off on the journey to Babylon. This 900-mile journey takes months, and many die along the way. Jerusalem is left almost empty, reduced to ruins. Only the poorest remain. This is the Babylonian exile. It is the most traumatic event in Jewish history. Decades pass. Jerusalem remains in ruins. The walls have been destroyed. The temple has been demolished. A small number of people are trying to live among the rubble. Plants are growing among the ruins. Wild animals now live on the Temple Mount. The city, once the center of the kingdom, is now indistinguishable from a ruin. But the dreams and thoughts of those in exile in Babylon are still here. 539 BC. The Persian king Cyrus the Great conquers Babylon and does something unprecedented. He issues a decree. The Jews may return to their homes and rebuild their temple. However, not all of them return, as most have established new lives in Babylon. The exile ends. Hope returns to Jerusalem. The returnees begin to build a new settlement from the ruins. In 520 BC, construction of the Second Temple begins. It is not as magnificent as Solomon's. The elderly, who remember the first temple, weep when they see the foundation. But the young people celebrate with joy. In 516 BC, the Second Temple is completed. Jerusalem is reborn. The exile is over. The city stands. 332 BC. Alexander the Great swept through the Persian Empire like a raging fire. When he arrived in Jerusalem, the high priest came out to greet him wearing his ceremonial robe. According to legend, Alexander recognized the high priest from a dream, spared the city. Jerusalem surrendered peacefully, and Greek rule began. Following Alexander's death, his empire fragmented, with Jerusalem coming under the control of the Ptolemaic dynasty of Egypt. Greek culture, or Hellenism, continued to dominate. Gymnasiums were built. The Greek language spread. Theater, philosophy, and art flourished. Many Jews adopted Greek traditions. Others resisted fiercely. Jerusalem was caught between two worlds. 200 BC. The Seleucid Empire defeats the Ptolemaic dynasty in Syria and seizes control of Jerusalem. At first, nothing changes, but the Seleucids are different. They are more aggressive in spreading Greek culture. Their king, Antiochus IV, would soon overstep the boundaries. 167 BC, Antiochus IV Epiphanes, whose name means manifestation of God, decides to force Greek culture upon the Jews. He banned Jewish traditions. Circumcision is forbidden. The Sabbath is forbidden. Studying the Torah is forbidden. Then he did something unimaginable. He enters the temple, sacrifices a pig on the altar, and erects a statue of Zeus. The Jews are horrified and prepare to resist. In Modi's village, a priest named Mattathias refuses to offer sacrifices to the Greek gods. When a Jewish friend volunteers to make a sacrifice, Mattathias kills him and the Greek officer. He then fled to the hills with his 5 sons. The Maccabean revolt had begun. Guerrilla warfare and hit-and-run tactics ensued. Despite all the difficulties, they began to win. In 164 BC, Judah Maccabee, also known as Judah the Hammer, recaptured Jerusalem. He entered the Holy Temple, purified it, and removed the Greek idols. They relit the menorah, but there was only enough sacred oil for 1 day. However, miraculously, the oil burned for 8 days. This is Hanukkah, the festival of lights. The temple was restored. The Maccabees established the Hasmonean dynasty. For the first time in centuries, the Jews ruled Jerusalem independently. They expanded the kingdom and conquered lands, forcing other communities to convert to Judaism. The temple was renovated, and Jerusalem enjoyed prosperity. However, the dynasty becomes corrupt. Brothers fought for power, and civil war tore the kingdom apart. Independence does not last long. 67 BC, the Hasmonean brothers, Hyrcanus and Aristobulus, were at war over the throne. Both sides made the fatal mistake of inviting Rome to mediate. The Roman General Pompey arrived with his legions and witnessed the state of Jerusalem and the civil war, and makes a decision. Rome will resolve this issue in its own favor. Roman rule is about to begin. Independence is coming to an end. 63 BC. Pompey refuses to negotiate. He besieged Jerusalem, and 3 months later, his army breaches the walls. 12,000 Jews died in the fighting. Pompey enters the temple and walks towards the Holy of Holies, a place so sacred that only the high priest could enter it once a year. Priest could enter once a year. He finds it empty. No statue, no gold, nothing. Stunned, he did not plunder it. Rome appointed Herod as king of the Jews. He was a cruel and wicked ruler. However, he was also a skilled builder. In 20 BC, he began renovating the Second Temple. He does not merely repair it, but transforms it by rebuilding it from the ground up. It is a massive expansion project. It features white, limestone, and gold. Though it took decades, the result was magnificent. In around AD 30, Jesus, a Jewish preacher from Nazareth, arrived in Jerusalem during the Passover festival. The Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, saw him as a potential rebel. The standard Roman punishment for rebellion was crucifixion. Jesus was crucified outside the city walls at a place called Golgotha. His followers claimed that he had risen from the dead. A new religion was about to emerge. 66 CE. Tensions erupt. The Roman governors were corrupt and ruthless. Jewish fanatics launch attacks. The Roman garrison in Jerusalem is defeated and destroyed. This marks the beginning of a major uprising. Emperor Nero sends his best general, Vespasian, with 3 legions. They arrive with 60,000 soldiers to suppress the revolt. Jerusalem prepares for the worst siege in its history. AD 70. Titus, the son of Vespasian, lays siege to Jerusalem with 4 legions for 5 months. The Jews inside the city were starving and fighting each other in a civil war. In August, the Romans captured the city and set fire to the temple. The unstoppable soldiers loot, kill, and burn everything in their path. The Second Temple, which had stood for 585 years, was destroyed. Over 1 million people died. Following another unsuccessful revolt, led by Bar Kokhba, between 132 and 135 CE, Emperor Hadrian expelled the Jews from Jerusalem entirely. He renamed the city Aelia Capitolina and built a Roman city on its ruins. The Temple of Jupiter was built on the site of the Jewish temple. Jerusalem was erased and transformed into a pagan Roman colony. All the Jews could do was watch from afar and weep over the ruins. By the 3rd century, the Christian community in Aelia Capitolina had grown considerably. However, the Roman authorities viewed them as a threat. They refused to worship the emperor or sacrifice to the Roman gods. In AD 250, Emperor Decius issued an empire-wide order to persecute them. Christians were arrested, tortured, and executed. Nevertheless, they continued to worship secretly in caves and private homes, spreading their faith. 312 CE. In Rome, Constantine is preparing to fight for the throne. According to legend, he saw a vision before the battle, a cross in the sky, bearing the words, "Conquer with this sign." He won the war. He then converts to Christianity. Christianity is about to be legalized. Jerusalem, now known as Aelia Capitolina, is about to be reborn. Pagan temples will be destroyed. Christian churches will rise in their place. A new era is beginning. 326 CE. Constantine sent his mother, Helena, to Jerusalem and gave her a task. to locate the sites where Jesus had lived and died. Constantine built a church on Golgotha, the site of Jesus' crucifixion. This is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Jerusalem ceased to be a pagan Roman colony and became the holiest city in Christianity. Pilgrims flocked there from all corners of the empire. By 400 CE, Jerusalem had become the center of Christian pilgrimage. The Church of the Tribe, Holy Sepulchre, drawing thousands of pilgrims. Monasteries dotted the surrounding hills. Monks and nuns and pilgrims from Egypt, Syria, Armenia, and Europe came to walk where they believed Jesus had walked. They come to walk where Jesus walked and prayed. Jerusalem is holy again, but in a different way. It is Byzantine, Christian, and sacred. 614 CE. The Persian Empire invades. Sassanid forces under King Khosrow II sweep through Byzantine territory, reaching Jerusalem. The siege lasted 21 days. When the Persians broke the siege, they slaughtered tens of thousands of people. Churches are burned. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is destroyed. The relic of the true cross is taken to Persia. Jerusalem's golden age of Christianity ends in flames. 629 CE. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius defeats the Persians and marches to Jerusalem. He entered the city on foot, carrying the true cross that he had recovered. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre is rebuilt. Christian rule is restored. But this won't last long. Just 9 years. Because something is stirring in Arabia. A new faith is about to arrive. 638 CE. An Arab Muslim army arrives from the desert. Caliph Omar ibn al-Khattab himself came to accept the city's surrender. The Patriarch Sophronius hands over the keys. Omar refuses to pray inside the Holy Sepulchre, fearing that Muslims will claim it as their own. Instead, he prays outside. Jerusalem al-Quds in Arabic, meaning the Holy, passes peacefully to Islamic rule. Christians and Jews are permitted to stay. 691 CE. Caliph Abd al-Malik commissions the construction of the magnificent Dome of the Rock on Temple Mount. Built upon the foundation stone, this is where Muslims believe Muhammad ascended to heaven, and where Jews believe Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac. It features a golden dome, intricate mosaics, and Islamic calligraphy. It is a breathtaking structure. Jerusalem now has 3 holy sites: the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for Christians, the Wailing Wall is holy to Jews, and the Dome of the Rock is holy to Muslims. For the next few centuries, Jerusalem remained under Islamic rule, first under the Umayyads, then under the Dai, Abbasid, and then Fatimid rule. It was a quiet period. The city isn't a capital, it's just a provincial town. Pilgrims still come, whether they are Christian, Muslim, or Jewish. The 3 faiths coexist, mostly peacefully. But something is brewing in Europe. Stories are spreading of Christian pilgrims being harassed. Popes are paying attention. Armies are forming. 1095 CE. In France, Pope Urban II calls for a crusade. "Take back Jerusalem," he cries. "Free the Holy Land from Muslim rule." Across Europe, knights, nobles, and peasants prepare. Armies gather and march eastward. Meanwhile, life in Jerusalem continues peacefully. Muslims, Christians, and Jews live side by side. Though they do not yet know it, everything is about to change. The Crusaders are coming. 15 July 1099. After a 5-week siege, the Crusaders breached the walls of Jerusalem. One of the bloodiest massacres in history then unfolded. They slaughtered Muslims, Jews, and even Eastern Christians, whom they could not distinguish from Muslims. The Dome of the Rock is plundered. The Al-Aqsa Mosque is destroyed. Within 2 days, 70,000 people lost their lives. The Crusaders established the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Godfrey of Bouillon, who called himself the Defender of the Holy Sepulchre, became the kingdom's first ruler. The city became a European Christian colony in the Middle East. Churches were built. Muslims and Jews were expelled or killed. The Crusaders ruled Jerusalem for 88 years. However, Muslim armies were regrouping. 1187. Saladin, the Muslim general who had united Egypt and Syria, arrived in Jerusalem. He had defeated the Crusaders at the Battle of Hattin. He besieged the city for 2 weeks. Balian of Ibelin negotiated a surrender. Saladin agreed that there would be no massacre. Christians could leave if they paid a ransom. Jerusalem returned to Muslim rule, this time peacefully. 1192. King Richard I of England, also known as Richard the Lionheart, leads the Third Crusade in an attempt to recapture Jerusalem. Although he won battles, he could not take the city. Saladin's defenses were too strong. Instead, Richard negotiates a treaty. Under the terms of the treaty, Christians could visit Jerusalem as pilgrims, but Muslims retained control of the city. Richard leaves without ever seeing the city he came to capture. Jerusalem remained in Muslim hands. Under Ayyubid rule, Jerusalem prospered. Saladin's successors rebuilt and renovated. The Dome of the Rock is given new tiles. The Al-Aqsa Mosque was restored. Christian and Jewish and Christian pilgrims were allowed to visit. Schools, hospitals, and libraries were built. It's a golden age of tolerance and learning. But dynasties don't last forever. The Ayyubids are growing weak. The Mongols are coming from the east. In 1250, the Mamluks, former slave soldiers who had seized power in Egypt, they defeated the Ayyubids, captured Jerusalem, and demolished the city walls. Without walls, there could be no siege and no Crusader conquest. Jerusalem became a provincial town. The Mamluks ruled from Cairo, not Jerusalem. The city was neglected and fell into decline. Nevertheless, it remains a holy place. 1516. A new power is rising, the Ottoman Turks. Sultan Selim, I conquered Syria and Egypt. He is now advancing south towards Jerusalem. The Mamluks cannot stop him. Ottoman rule is about to begin. Unlike the Mamluks, the Ottomans intend to invest in Jerusalem. They will rebuild the walls and renovate the Dome of the Rock. The city is about to transform once more. 1537. Sultan Suleiman, the Magnificent, ordered the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls. Over the course of 4 years, workers constructed the walls that still stand today. These include 8 gates, such as the famous Damascus Gate, are built. The Dome of the Rock was renovated. Water fountains were built. Jerusalem has been transformed from a neglected backwater into an Ottoman jewel. The Ottomans will rule for the next 400 years. Jerusalem has found stability. The Ottomans ruled Jerusalem in relative peace for 400 years. Suleiman's walls stand. The city was a quiet provincial town where Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived side by side. By side. It's not a capital city or a center of power. It's just a sacred city where 3 faiths are worshipped. However, the Ottoman Empire is slowly crumbling, and the European powers watching. 1799. Napoleon invades Egypt and advances towards Jerusalem. The British stop him. The Eastern question: what would happen if the Ottoman Empire collapsed? European powers begin maneuvering. Railways are planned. Consulates are opened. Jerusalem becomes a center of attraction once again. 11 December 1917, British General Edmund Allenby enters Jerusalem. After 400 years, Ottoman rule comes to an end. Out of respect, Allenby entered the old city on foot. The British Mandate begins. The Jews want a homeland. Meanwhile, Arab nationalism was awakening. Two peoples, one land. Conflict is beginning. 1948. The UN divides Palestine and Israel, declares its independence. The Arab armies refuse to accept this. Invade, turning Jerusalem into a war zone. When the fighting ends, the city is divided. West Jerusalem is under Israeli control. East Jerusalem under Jordanian control. The old city, where all the holy sites are located, falls to Jordan. A wall divides the city in two, and it remains divided for 19 years. 7 June 1967. The Six-Day War begins. Israeli paratroopers fought in the Old City for the first time in 19 years, reaching the Western Wall. Jerusalem was reunited under Israeli control. However, reunification has different meanings for different people. For Israelis, it is a homecoming. For Palestinians, it is an occupation. The conflict intensifies. The decades after 1967 saw cycles of violence. The First Intifada began in 1987. The Second Intifada in 2000. There were suicide bombings, checkpoints, and security barriers. Jerusalem became a walled city again, divided by separation barriers and checkpoints. Neighborhoods, both sides claim it as their capital. Peace talks repeatedly failed. The conflict seems endless. Today, Jerusalem is a city of contrasts, ancient and modern, sacred, political. The holy sites of three religions are still in use. The Western Wall, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the Dome of the Rock. Tourists flock here, but beneath this beauty, conflict simmers. 4,000 years, from a Canaanite hilltop to a divided modern capital, Jerusalem has been conquered and destroyed time and again, only to be rebuilt. Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, Crusaders, Mamluks, Ottomans, British and Israelis and Palestinians have all claimed it. All have claimed it. Through it all, Jerusalem endures. It is still sacred to three faiths, still contested, still standing. It is the city that refuses to die.